Welcome to a brand new episode of Global Scan, a show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global developments. On the show today, as the world battles novel coronavirus that has reached well over 120 countries, US President Donald Trump personally makes the case for Namaste, India's traditional greeting, to help keep the virus at bay. Joe Biden consolidates his lead after the second Super Tuesday in the race for the Democratic nomination, and Ashraf Ghani is sworn in as Afghanistan president, even as Abdullah holds a parallel inauguration. All that and more in Global Scan. I'm Prasar. Let's get started with the top world news. World battles novel coronavirus. Countries strengthen prevention and control measures to curb its spread. US bans arrivals from Europe for a month. Spain bans flights from Italy for 2 weeks. India suspends all existing visas with some exceptions till the 15th of April. Indian Cricket Board postpones IPL from 29th March to 15th April. WHO declares the outbreak a pandemic. Joe Biden inches closer to Democratic nomination with victories in 3 primaries on Super Tuesday, widens his advantage over Bernie Sanders. Sanders says committed to the overarching goal of defeating Republican Donald Trump in general election. South Africa's High Court clears President Cyril Ramaphosa of lying to Parliament about the source of a political donation, dismisses findings of an anti-corruption investigator who said that Ramaphosa had deliberately misled Parliament over a campaign donation. Incumbent Afghan President Mohammad Ashraf Ghani sworn in for a second 5-year term. Afghanistan's Chief Justice Syed Yusuf Halim administers swearing-in ceremony at the fortified presidential palace. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle leave London's Westminster Abbey on a new career path devoid of official duties, attend the annual Commonwealth Day service, pay tribute to late Princess Diana. And let's now begin with a special focus on coronavirus outbreak. As novel coronavirus spreads across continents, countries have stepped up prevention and control measures. United States blocked most visitors from continental Europe for a month. Italian authorities put the country under lockdown, even as Spain banned all flights from Italy for 2 weeks, and Japan extended cancellations and postponements of big sports and cultural events till late March. Considering the geographical spread of the virus, WHO declared the outbreak of COVID-19 as a pandemic. Meanwhile, the Indian Cricket Board postponed IPL tournament from the 29th of March to the 15th of April.
As the coronavirus spread continued across the world, countries including Spain, Italy, Iran, South Korea and Japan have further strengthened prevention and control measures to curb COVID-19 outbreak. In Italy, the decree putting the country under lockdown goes into effect on Tuesday and will last till April 3 in a bid to prevent the ongoing coronavirus epidemic from spreading. Local health authority of Lombardy region said a full control measure may be taken in the next 15 days. All stores and offices except pharmacies and supermarkets that provide basic services will be closed, and most public transportation will be suspended. Spain has also banned all flights from Italy for 2 weeks and closed schools and colleges in the regions of Madrid and La Rioja for the next 2 weeks. In South Korea, a large cluster of infections was reported in Seoul on Wednesday. According to the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the cluster of infections are connected to a call center in Shindorim-dong of Guro district. And the newly confirmed patients included call center staff and those who were in close contact with them, such as family members. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Tuesday announced a series of new measures to control the epidemic at a press conference, including the prohibition of reselling masks. In addition, Abe announced that the cancellation and the postponement of big sport and cultural events will last for 10 more days, till late March. To better control the epidemic and treat patients in Iran, Chinese medical experts and the Red Cross Society of China on Tuesday discussed major concerns about Iran's epidemic control and the corresponding solutions through a video conference. People in the United States are rushing to hoard medical protective supplies amid the COVID-19 spread fear. More than a third of the consumers are worried about product shortages, and 1 in 10 has started to hoard products, according to a survey. Fearing that the epidemic could lead to shortages of daily items, many are stockpiling toilet paper and drinking water. US President Donald Trump has suspended travel from Europe except UK for 30 days in response to COVID-19 outbreak. In India, a high-level group of ministers reviewed the current status and actions for the prevention and management of COVID-19. All existing visas except diplomatic, official, UN, international organizations, employment, project visas stand suspended till the 15th of April 2020. All incoming travelers, including Indian nationals arriving from and having visited China, Italy, Iran, Republic of Korea, France, Spain and Germany after the 15th of February 2020 shall be quarantined for a minimum period of 14 days. Incoming travelers, including Indian nationals, are advised to avoid non-essential travel. Australian people are also in the midst of a toilet paper panic, fueled by concerns of shortages stemming from the novel coronavirus outbreak. With the jump in the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Australia, many residents have been filling their cupboards with essential items for the event of a widespread outbreak. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization described the new coronavirus as a pandemic for the first time on Wednesday, March 11, adding that Italy and Iran were now on the front line of the disease, and other countries would soon join them.
Describing the situation as a pandemic does not change WHO's assessment of the threat posed by the virus. It doesn't change what WHO is doing, and it doesn't change what countries should do. We have never before seen a pandemic sparked by a coronavirus. This is the first pandemic caused by a coronavirus. And we have never before seen a pandemic that can be controlled at the same time. In the days and weeks ahead, we expect to see the number of cases, the number of deaths, and the number of affected countries climb even higher. WHO has been assessing this outbreak around the clock, and we're deeply concerned both by the alarming levels of spread and severity and by the alarming levels of inaction.
Global shares crumbled on March 12 after US President Donald Trump stunned investors by announcing a temporary travel ban from Europe in an effort to curb the spread of the coronavirus, threatening more disruptions to businesses and the world economy. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Well, US President Donald Trump is personally making the case for Namaste, India's traditional greeting, in the wake of coronavirus, referring to his recent trip to India and relating how he and Ireland's Prime Minister Leo Varadkar greeted each other the Indian way when they met at the White House on Thursday.
Well, we didn't shake hands today, and we looked at each other and we said, what are we going to do? You know, it's sort of a weird feeling.
I think we went
And we
for
said
this.
at the same time, we did this. You know, I just got back from India, and I didn't shake any hands there, and it was very easy because they go like this, and Japan goes like this. They were ahead of the curve, okay?
So Donald Trump is making a case for Namaste, the traditional Indian greeting. Let's now take a look at what really a pandemic means, because the WHO has declared the outbreak of COVID-19 as a pandemic. It is not linked to changes to characteristics of disease. So the disease's characteristics remain the same. There is no change as far as characteristics is concerned. So what does this mean? It is associated with concerns over geographical spread. Since the geographical spread is now to more than 120 countries. That is why the WHO has taken this decision. New disease for which people don't have immunity spreads beyond expectations. So this is the criteria the WHO has outlined for naming an outbreak as a pandemic. So that's about the declaration of a pandemic, and now how the world is combating COVID-19. Well, Iran has sought emergency loan from IMF to fight COVID-19, and that loan is worth $5 billion. Why has Iran had to do that? Because Iran is facing a crisis of sorts. There are several top officials in Iran that have contracted the virus, including cabinet ministers, health ministry officials. So Iran has now sought aid from the International Monetary Fund, which is the IMF, in the form of a loan of $5 billion. Let's take a look at the numbers now. Well, over 1,27,000 people have been infected worldwide by novel coronavirus. Let's take a look at the casualties as well. Over 4,700 deaths have been reported globally, and bulk of these deaths are in China. Over 1,500 deaths are outside China, so bulk of them are in China. So various countries are facing the heat as far as novel coronavirus is concerned. 122 countries outside China have reported infections. That's perhaps the reason why WHO has declared the outbreak as a pandemic. First cases have been reported in Cuba, Honduras, Ivory Coast as well. So these are the countries where first cases have been reported of late. First deaths have been reported in Bulgaria, Indonesia, Ireland, Poland, Sweden and Greece. So that's how the spread of novel coronavirus is taking place. Have a concerted global effort to contain the spread of novel coronavirus. World combats COVID-19. Here are the various countries where the casualties are more than 10. China, Italy, Iran, South Korea, Spain, France, US and Japan. So these are the 8 countries where the number of casualties are well over the 10 mark. Besides that, how various other countries are combating novel coronavirus. In Sri Lanka, there is a shutdown for all schools till the 20th of April. So that's how Sri Lanka is combating it. And now let's take a look at how other countries are combating this virus. Czech Republic bars travelers from 15 countries. So Czech Republic is again pulling out all stops just like other countries are. Besides that, Austria has barred entries from Italy. So Austria too is making sure that there are restrictions as far as travel are concerned. Indoor events of over 100 people have been banned in Austria. So there are restrictions that have been put on public gatherings. That is the case in Austria. That's the case in other countries as well. In Austria, schools are to be closed from next week until April. Remember, in Sri Lanka also schools have been closed at least for some time. Besides that, there is Sweden, where public gatherings of over 500 people have been banned. So these are some common measures that various countries are taking, keeping a tab on public gatherings and putting restrictions in that context. Denmark, a 10-fold increase in cases already. So Denmark too is pulling out all stops to contain the spread of novel coronavirus. Considering that the incidence is such, there is a 10-fold increase already. Schools and universities have been closed in Denmark. So Denmark too is one of those countries which has put restrictions on schools and universities. All this is being done to contain the spread of novel coronavirus. Besides that, in Denmark, public sector employees or workers with non-critical jobs have been sent home because they've been told to work from home in most countries, including in India, where several companies are going in for work from home. And this is one such country where public sector employees have been sent home. And in Ukraine, mass events have been restricted. So Ukraine too has ensured that mass gatherings do not take place so that the spread can be contained. In Ukraine too, schools and universities have been closed in Kyiv, which is the capital of Ukraine. Besides that, there are other countries as well. For instance, there's Guatemala now. Citizens of European countries, Iran, China, South Korea and North Korea have been barred. These are high-risk countries where restrictions have been put by various countries, including by Guatemala. Let's move on now to news from the Americas. In the U.S. presidential election, Joe Biden's campaign momentum continued on Big Tuesday with decisive wins in 3 primaries, Mississippi, Missouri and Michigan. But Bernie Sanders is not bowing out from the race for Democratic nomination. Sanders has vowed to stay in the race, even though Joe Biden looks to unite Democrats behind his presidential bid.
Joe Biden won Michigan's crucial Democratic nominating contest on the 10th of March, taking a big step towards the party's presidential nomination and dealing a stinging blow to rival Bernie Sanders' fading White House bid. Biden, the former vice president under Barack Obama, also captured Missouri and Mississippi on a day when 6 states made their choices in the race to pick a challenger to Republican President Donald Trump. The wins on Tuesday put 77-year-old Biden on a path to the nomination to face Trump in the November 3rd election, while effectively closing the path for 78-year-old Sanders, who had been hoping for an upset win in Michigan to keep his dwindling White House hopes alive.
And I want to thank Bernie Sanders and his supporters for their tireless energy and their passion. We share a common goal, and together we'll defeat Donald Trump. We'll defeat him together. We're going to bring this nation together. In my first campaign, when I was a kid, a long time ago, I had a billboard that said one thing on it. Had a picture of my wife and children, and it said, "For all our families." That's all it was, for all our families. That included Democratic families, families of independent voters, Republican families, everyone of every stripe, for all our families. And look, that's what we were able to accomplish in South Carolina. That's what we did on Super Tuesday. And it appears, although it's a little premature, it appears that's what we're able to do tonight.
Democratic U.S. presidential contender Bernie Sanders said he was committed to the overarching goal of defeating Republican Donald Trump in the November's general election.
While our campaign has won the ideological debate, we are losing the debate over electability. I cannot tell you how many people our campaign has spoken to who have said, and I quote, "I like what your campaign stands for. I agree with what your campaign stands for, but I'm going to vote for Joe Biden because I think Joe is the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump." End of quote. We have heard that statement all over this country. Needless to say, I strongly disagree with that assertion. But that is what millions of Democrats and independents today believe. On Sunday, I very much look forward to the debate in Arizona with my friend Joe Biden.
A candidate needs at least 1,991 delegates to secure the nomination, and Biden led the delegate count heading into Tuesday's contests. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Now news from Asia. Incumbent Afghan President Mohammad Ashraf Ghani was sworn in for a second five-year term on Monday, while his main election rival and government chief executive Abdullah also held a parallel presidential swearing-in ceremony. Afghanistan's Chief Justice Syed Yusuf Halim administered Ghani's swearing-in ceremony at the fortified presidential palace. Ghani issued the first presidential decree shortly after taking oath, appointing Mohammad Yusuf Ghazanfar as the president's special envoy on development, economic, commercial and alleviation of poverty affairs. Chief Executive Abdullah held a parallel oath-taking ceremony in the nearby Sapedar Palace. On 18th February, Afghanistan's Election Commission announced the final results of the 28th of September 2019 presidential poll and declared incumbent President Ghani as the winner. The Election Commission said that Ghani secured 50.64% of the votes, winning a second term, and Abdullah came in the second place with 39.52% of the votes. It was the fourth presidential election in Afghanistan since the collapse of the Taliban regime in late 2001. Moving now to Europe. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle left London's Westminster Abbey on the 9th of March in what was the last public family gathering before the couple set off on a new career path devoid of official duties. Britain's top royals came together at the annual Commonwealth service. It was the first time Harry and Meghan had been seen with Queen Elizabeth, his elder brother William and wife Kate, and father Prince Charles and wife Camilla, since the couple thrashed out an exit deal from the royal rolls in January. Harry and Meghan chatted and laughed with people outside the Abbey during their departure. The January agreement, which comes into action at the end of the month, will see the couple, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, seek to carve out a progressive new role, mainly based in North America, that they aim to finance themselves. Harry and Meghan will stop using their HRH titles. His or Her Royal Highness will not use royal in their branding. And Harry, who will remain a prince, will relinquish his military titles. Moving on to Africa now. South Africa's High Court has cleared President Cyril Ramaphosa of lying to Parliament about the source of a political donation in a case seen as a proxy of the bitter power rivalry between the president's supporters and those of his scandal-plagued predecessor Jacob Zuma inside the ruling African National Congress. In July, Public Protector Basiseve Mkhwebane alleged that Ramaphosa deliberately misled Parliament over a 5 lakh rands donation to his campaign to succeed Zuma. In her report, she said there was also evidence of money laundering involving millions of rands in the handling of donations. That sparked an angry response from Ramaphosa, who challenged the legality and motivation of the report. Relatives and friends of those who died when Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed a year ago gathered for a ceremony at the crash site on Tuesday, the day after an interim report focused on the software installed on the Boeing 7373 MAX plane. The accident killed everyone on board, 157 passengers and crew from 33 nations. Families from across the globe attended a ceremony at the site, 3 hours drive from Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, at which there was a tree planting and reading out of the victims' names. The crash on 10th March 2019 was the second involving the new 737 MAX plane in just 5 months and led to its worldwide grounding. And now a quick roundup of all other major happenings around the world in Speed News.
Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok survived an apparent assassination attempt in an explosion near his convoy in the capital Khartoum. Hamdok confirmed he was safe in a tweet shortly after the attack. Authorities said one member of Hamdok's entourage suffered light injuries. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met senior NATO and EU officials in Brussels to seek support over the refugee crisis his country is facing. Tens of thousands of asylum seekers have been trying to break through the land border from Turkey following last week's announcement that it would no longer prevent people from trying to cross into EU countries. Turkey, which hosts around 4 million mostly Syrian refugees, has repeatedly railed against what it describes as unfair burden sharing. Nearly 1,000 migrants tried to cross into Greece from Turkey despite tight border security. The authorities said that 963 people have been prevented from illegally crossing into Greece, with 52 of them arrested. The arrested included migrants from Syria, Afghanistan and Iran. North Korea launched multiple short-range projectiles into the sea on Monday as part of ongoing firing drills, a week after it resumed missile tests following a 3-month break. North Korea's actions immediately drew reactions from Japan. Japan's Chief Cabinet Secretary Yoshihide Suga said the launches threaten the peace and security of Japan and the region. Murder trial for conducting missile strikes on a Malaysian airliner began against 4 fugitive defendants. Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 was hit by a surface-to-air missile on the 17th of July 2014 while flying over Ukrainian territory, which killed 298 people on board. Dutch prosecutors accused Russia of trying to sabotage the investigation into the case. Russia has denied any involvement. Venezuelan security forces clashed with protesters led by US-backed opposition leader Juan Guaido and prevented them from marching on the national legislature. The march, attended by several thousand opposition demonstrators, advanced only a few blocks towards the Congress in downtown Caracas before a phalanx of riot police barricaded the road and began firing tear gas to disperse the crowd. Authorities in Colombia busted an animal smuggling ring out of the country, rescuing thousands of native mata-mata turtles worth $250,000. Authorities said the turtles were to be smuggled out to the US and Japan. According to authorities, 150 of the mata-mata turtles were found dead. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Let's now go back in time and see this world through the prism of history in History Scan.
On 9th March 1959, the first Barbie doll went on display at the American Toy Fair in New York City. 11 inches tall, with a waterfall of blonde hair, Barbie was the first mass-produced toy doll in the United States with adult features. The first speech over a telephone was transmitted on 10th March 1876 when inventor Alexander Graham Bell used an instrument in Boston to call Thomas Watson. On 12 March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi began the Dandi March to the sea in protest of the British monopoly on salt. It was one of the most important events in India's struggle for freedom. Dandi March ended on 6th April 1930. The date was 13th March and the year was 1781, when German-born English astronomer William Herschel used his telescope and made the discovery of new planet to the solar system, Uranus. The discovery distinguished Uranus as a planet, not a star, as previous astronomers believed. On 14th March 1879, physicist Albert Einstein was born in Germany's Ulm. Einstein's theories of special and general relativity drastically altered man's view of the universe, and his work in particle and energy theory helped make possible quantum mechanics and ultimately the atomic bomb. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
And it's time for Showbiz Now, where we bring you all the buzz from the world of art and entertainment.
After over 1 month of its Oscar win, South Korean movie Parasite continues to break old records and set new ones. This time, Bong Joon-ho's masterpiece has become the highest-grossing non-English language film in the UK. It broke the record of The Passion of the Christ with a total of £11.5 million at the box office. The Passion of the Christ had set the record at £11.1 million in 2004. Bong Joon-ho's black comedy made history as the first international film to win the Best Picture Oscar.
I tell people my sister moved.
Cheering women power, Marvel Studios and Disney dropped the final trailer of the upcoming Black Widow, starring Scarlett Johansson as the lead. Scarlett is joined by David Harbour, Florence Pugh and Rachel Weisz in the superhero extravaganza. The film will hit the silver screen on the 1st of May this year. In the world of music, Lady Gaga's Stupid Love has earned the American singer another high debuting top 10 entry nearly 9 years after mega hit The Edge of Glory. The singer's dance track went straight into the UK charts at number 5, making it the 13th UK top 10 single. It also landed in at the same position in the US on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming her 16th top 10. 18-year-old Grammy holder Billie Eilish is busy setting new records. In the latest, her single Bad Guy has been named as the top global single of 2019 by the record industry. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
And now the image of the week. What looked like a battle scene was actually a celebration. Residents of the Mexican town of Tultepec celebrated the patron saint of fireworks, San Juan de Dios. Fireworks, also referred to as castles, are detonated, filling the sky with images of charging bulls. Tultepec has adopted San Juan de Dios as its patron saint. Legend has it that he rescued patients from a burning hospital.